Okay, we're going to look into structured query language. In some particular courses, it basically goes through a few days, it goes through a few full day of workshop just to look at this structured query language, also known as SQL. Some IT guys actually pronounce it as SQL. Basically just take the letter SQL and just pronounce it, but it actually means structured query language. It is a so-called non-procedural language, or sometimes called as a fourth generation language, because it is so easy to use and basically it's so simple to pick up. It is very much used for communication with database, and it can do updates, it can do retrieval, it can even manipulate the database itself. But beside all this, all these things that we look into, these bullet points on this slide, what actually does it actually do? Well, since it is a structured query language and it works basically with a database, so of course you need a database. How is it normally used? It can be used by a DBA, or database administrator. A database administrator can use SQL as a way to interact with the database in that organization. Right, like for instance, manipulating the tables, or creating new tables, columns, or changing the attributes, or even inserting records or deleting records, or even updating records. Right, so database administrator are commonly the user of SQL. All right, but they are not the only one using SQL, because what programmers like to do, because programmers understand the ability of the SQL language and what it can do, as well as it can actually reduce the work of the programmer in terms of codings, in terms of writing their own procedures. So programmers tend to use SQL as a way to communicate with the database, but through some form of application. Right, so they could create a form, which takes some input from a user, which fill up the form and basically convert this data, that the input, into a SQL statement. Then have this SQL statement sent to the database for execution, and the database will just run against all the record it has and return the result. This result will then be displayed on the form like a user reports, or some extraction of data to be used later in this particular application. And this is not only in a so-called closed network environment. This form or this application can also be from a web form, web application, through the internet. So this is basically the fundamentals of what SQL is and how it is normally used.